The fact that PSA still charge their customers the full submission fee when they do this is honestly incredibly disappointing, and it's something that needs to change. Hey everyone, Dan the Cardman back again. Welcome to another weekly news video. Very glad to have you here. Today's topics are pretty exciting, so let's get cracking. Now, the first point I want to touch on is what PSA actually do when you've submitted a card that they've flagged as trimmed, or evidence of trim, I should say, or maybe even altered in some instances. Now, what they'll do for you is they'll send it back in a card statement with this little label that says evidence of trim. We can't grade it. What's really disappointing is that they still charge you a full fee. So this person, Uncle Rary Sports Cards, which I flagged, I think, in my last video when I talked about the graded cards, you can see the thumbnail down below, and I'll put the description, the link in my description, sorry. But he got charged $2.5 grand, even though they said every single card was trimmed, which is absolutely mental in my opinion. The fact that they're still charging you a full fee is beyond bonkers in my opinion. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And I understand that they've still spent time grading this card, but there's other ways to try and recoup their cost, right? And what they should be doing in this instance, which is something that I agree with Sports Card Rater that they mentioned in a recent video, was that why don't you just raise the fee across the board, make everyone pay for instances like this? Because when you've got something like this happening, this person's paying $2.5 grand to get nothing graded. And from his perspective, and we can only trust his word, right? He's saying 85% of these cards, I think is what he says. Yeah, 85%. Over here, you can see a pack fresh. Okay, and they're still flagged it as trimmed. And what PSA will often do in this instance, which I've touched on in a recent video as well, is they'll see that they think one card is trimmed. And you see this happen all the time with people that get their submissions back. There'll be one card that maybe was trimmed. But because PSA then a bit concerned that this card was trimmed, and they don't maybe have comfort over any of the others because they start getting some bias in their mind, right? Maybe the card that flagged as trimmed was the first one they looked at. Because they then can't get comfortable, they think, well, actually, maybe these other cards are trimmed too. So they just do a blanket approach, and which is probably like a fair assessment for them to do at times. I think they should still be looking at every card on their own merit, but from their perspective, right? They're meant to be like a regulator reviewer to this process. I can understand why they might start getting a bit queasy when they start seeing evidence of actual trim occurring, and then the question marks are raised on the other cards. The reason why this is a problem is because they're still charging a full fee. So outside looking in, someone could say, well, this is just a way for PSA to inflate their revenue, right? This is a way for them to get free revenue because they don't have to do any work and they can charge you a full fee, which is utterly ridiculous. So like, I think that's a fair question to ask, and it maybe does happen in some instances, right? Because it's essentially fraud, and maybe it does happen. Like, I can't confirm, I can't deny that, right? But from the outside looking in, you could make that assumption. The way PSA could probably kill that thought process is maybe don't charge the full fee. Maybe you charge half the fee. Maybe you charge 10% of the fee. Maybe you just increase the fees across the board to account for instances like this, just because it's completely unacceptable in my opinion. I'm really keen to get your thoughts down on this in the comments below. And what's really hilarious that Sports Card Radio flagged with this is that Nat Turner, who is the owner of PSA, bought them out recently. Somebody stumbled upon a post, I think it was on Blowout, or maybe it was on Instagram, I think it's since been deleted, where he sent some cards in to get graded. They were flagged as trimmed, and he said it was completely unacceptable that PSA was doing this. It's so dodgy, it doesn't make sense why they're doing this, and now he's the owner, and they're still doing it. It's like, okay, what, now it's okay because you're making money from it? Like, I don't know, I'm not here to make enemies, but I'm here to call crap out, and that's unacceptable in my opinion. So can you get your thoughts on that in the comments below? Like, I can understand, like I said, where they're coming from, right? Because from an outside looking in, when you're in that internal process and you're very clearly seeing something that's fake in their perspective, it starts raising questions and other things. So I can understand how it's hard for them to then get comfortable, but it's unacceptable the fact that they still charge the full price. It's purely revenue raising, in my opinion. But I'm really curious to see what you guys think in the comments below. So that's sort of it for the first point. The other thing I want to touch on is print runs, right? Like, this is crazy. I haven't confirmed the numbers within this tweet, but what this person has posted on Twitter is that looking at Football Parallels, Prism Football, right? In 2020, you had 18,700 roughly. And then back in 2017, 3 years earlier, you had less than half that. And that's pretty constant across the board. And something that concerns me quite a lot, right? Because if you look at why cards were valuable back in the day, it's because people didn't look after them, right? People didn't really care about them. They're just cards to collect. So the ones that remained to today, that are in good condition, have a higher value, right? Because they're collector pieces. Whereas when you're getting 18,000 parallels, why is that going to be a collector piece? Yes, you could say that there's so many more people in the hobby these days that you need more parallels to even it out across the hobby. But what's going to happen when all this new money comes in that maybe doesn't want to stay long term? Like, you're going to have all these cards, and I've touched on this many times, and it's not anything groundbreaking, right? Because so many people talk about this. So many people talk about this all the time, about print runs being crazy and the junk slab era and all this sort of stuff. But when you see these kinds of numbers, it's a bit worrying, right? Because it starts questioning as to what cards are actually going to be valuable. I can understand it's not a problem for collectors if you're getting the cards you want at a cheap price, but if you're somebody that's heavily invested in modern cards, which most people would be, right? Not most people, you get the idea. Most people still do collect modern cards. If you're heavily invested, you should be a bit concerned, because why is that card today going to be worth the same as something that's worth that from a couple of years earlier that's like a lower print run, right? And I touched on this in another video as well when I talked about how I'll do a pop-up on the screen where I talked about how sports cards tied to championship events, as an example, might be worth more than cards not, purely on the basis that when you have a player, like I'll use his Donnarumma, I've got a gold card packed away, but I'll use his Donnarumma as an example. It's a blue parallel, 225. My logic was, with the gold cards out of 10, they won the championship, they won the Euros this year, and that's the year that this card relates to. So should that number out of 10 be worth more than a card that comes out for his every other year that's also out of 10 and is a gold? Like, I'd probably say yes. And when you see numbers like this for these kinds of parallels, you could probably say yes too, because every year these players are getting more and more parallels in the same colors. Like, where's the rarity come from? And the rarity is what what supports the value. So it's a bit surprising. It's fairly consistent across the whole industry. I'm really curious to see what Fanatics will do with their print runs. I think Panini is just going to go balls to the wall and start printing like crazy until they lose their license, right? Because they're here to make as much money as possible in the immediate future. So I think it's going to get worse. It's going to get even more overflow, because Panini doesn't really care what happens once they lose their license, right? If the market falls in the ass, why do they care what happens to sports cards? You know what I mean? Like, why do they care? They could create this mess for Fanatics where by the time Fanatics get on board, there's no market left to buy the product. So pretty curious to see what your thoughts are on this one as well. And please give me a like and a follow. Share that down in the comments below on both these 2 points, because these are both really good talking points for this week. Now, the last point I want to touch on again is from Wax Museum Podcast. Again, I quote this guy a lot on the channel. I really love his videos. I like his approach to collecting. He's a true collector, and he just loves oddball things, which like I do as well, where like he chases eBay lots for value and things like that. He recently completed his Topps Chrome Paces Gold Refractor set, which is really exciting, right? Because that's always a really fun thing to do as a collector, right? Where you're working towards a certain collection, you're targeting certain cards, and you finally get to the end of that, either that rainbow chase or that set. You finally get to that end. So it's a really fulfilling thing to do, right? And it's also like a catch-22, right? Because you get to the end, but then you think, okay, now I can maybe not spend so much money anymore. And you're like, well, actually, now there's a new thing I want to collect. So it's sort of like a full circle kind of thing. And it's really exciting. I just wanted to flag it. That's the sort of good news for the week. And this is the kind of stuff that I love to see. And I really hope you guys do as well. So maybe you could share in the comments below like a recent set that you've finished your collection for. I'm going through a few at the moment. I'm chasing, bring up this Donnarumma again. I'm chasing a full set of those, and it's just really exciting. I'm really keen to get your thoughts on that, because that's my favorite thing to try and do when you get to near the end of that set and then you're finishing up. It just feels really accomplished, and it's really nice to sit there and look in your binder or look on your shelf where the cards are stacked and you can see them, and it just brings a lot of comfort and a lot of fun, and it's what the hobby's about at the end of the day. So yeah, please share your comments down. Please share your thoughts down in the comments below. I'm talking like crazy today on those 3 points. I will just touch on one other thing regarding platinum breaks. I think there's more information to come from this story. I'll do a pop-up on the screen to it and put a link down below to my recent video on this. I've just been contacted by someone who has access to the video. They haven't sent it to me just yet. Oh, sorry, the audio recording. This is the audio recording that Sports Card Radio played, and it just gives a bit more context as to what's actually happening. And there's actually more stories as well. And I'll touch on that in another video, but I'm just flagging it now so you guys can just basically wait and see for that to come out. There's more stuff to come, and I think it's probably going to come out on Sports Card Radio first, because they definitely have the audio already. I'm just putting it out there. You guys need to be watching out, because there's definitely more information coming. So that's sort of it for this week. I hope you liked the video. Please give me a like and a follow. Share your thoughts on those 3 points we discussed. I'm really keen to chat through them with you. Let me know, like I said, if you've recently collected a set or finished a set, and what that meant, and maybe what you're chasing next, because it's always good to chat through those kinds of things. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.